Grade 12 Annual. In this video we'll be studying special angles in trigonometry. Remember there are 5 special angles, which is 30, 60, 45 degrees. There's a 0 degree angle as well, right? And there's a 90-degree angle as well. And so we will be looking into these 5 special angles. So if you're going to put the angles in degrees, you're going to put them as in order 0, 30, 45, 60 and 90. Right, the purpose of special angles is when you're not allowed to use a calculator and you come across these types of angles, what we're going to do is we're going to use these triangles or this table. Now if you're going to use the table, remember this is 0 degrees is 0, 30 degrees is, let's go 90 degrees, we know that is pi by 2 in radians, 60 degrees is pi by 3, 45 degrees is pi by 4. Be careful, this is not pi by 5 now, this is pi by 6, because 180 divided by 6 is 30. And these are the order opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. Now I will show you how to fill these in after we have done this. Now how do we go about creating a 30-60 triangle? 30 degree 60 degree triangle is from an isosceles triangle. If you take an isosceles triangle with the side length 2, so if that is 2 and you cut it exactly in half, so you get 1 1. Remember this was an isosceles triangle, so obviously this is 60 degrees, that is 60 degrees, that's 30 and 30. So there's your 30 60 90 triangle. Now you have the adjacent, which is 1, you have the hypotenuse, which is 2. So what is the height? The height is basically the square root of 2 squared, which is 4, minus 1. We are using Pythagoras, so we're getting square root of 3. So the height is basically root 3. I hope you understood that. So this is your triangle with 30, 60 and 90. So if I ask you what is sine of 30, that's opposite of hypotenuse. If I ask you what is cos of 60, cos of 60 is adjacent of hypotenuse, it is half. What is sine 60? Root 3 over 2. What is tan of 60? Root 3 over 1, which is root 3. What is tan of 30? 1 over root 3. Okay, and that's how you use these triangles with the 30 60. So just focus on one side, don't have to worry about the other side. So that's how we get the 30 60 triangle. So this is done. Let's move on to the 45 degree triangle. In a 45 degree triangle, we'll make the hypotenuse 2, right? And because these are equivalent, we call it x and x. So all you need to solve for is x, right? Now in order to solve for x, we can use Pythagoras. So we got 2x squared. How we got 2x squared? X squared plus x squared is 2x squared, and that's equals to 2 squared, which is 4. This is from Pythagoras, right? So now we can clearly see that x squared is equal to 2, so x is equal to square root of 2. So we know what the value of x is, which is root 2, root 2. So if I ask you what is tan of 45, you're just going to go root 2 over root 2, which is 1. Right, sine 45, root 2 over 2, right? What is cos of 45? Again, adjacent of hypotenuse, root 2 over 2. So everything works there. Perfect. Now let's focus on the 0 degree triangle. Now remember, if this is the radius, okay, and this is the, remember this is also the radius. If I drop down a perpendicular, this becomes x, that becomes y, and that's r. Now remember, this is some angle theta, okay, but now I want theta to be 0 degrees. If I want 0 degrees, so r will fall flat on x. So what we notice is that r is equal to x and y is 0. Obviously there's no height at this point, okay, so that's a 0 degree. You don't really get a triangle. 0 degree is just a horizontal line. Now if I ask you what is sine of 0, sine of 0 is opposite of our hypotenuse, y over r, right? But y is 0, so you got 0 over r, which is 0. If I ask you what is cos of 0, cos of 0 is x over r. X is r, so we're getting r over r, which is equal to 1. If I ask you what is tan of 0, right? Tan of 0 is y over x, right? Opposite over adjacent, but y is 0, so you're getting 0 over x, which is 0. So these are your 0 degree angles. I hope you understood that. So 0 is just basically a horizontal line. There is no height. But now let's look at 90 degrees. We are moving theta there. So remember, we have, this is y, right? This is x. Now we are shifting this line right across there. It's a vertical line now. Okay, why we make it a vertical line? It's a vertical line. That's how you get the 90-degree angle here. Okay, you get the 90-degree angle here, and that's a vertical line. So what is this entire angle here? That's 90 degrees. So x shifts back there, so x is equal to 0, y shifts there, and this is the radius. Okay, remember, we move the radius to the vertical line, so r is equal to y. Now we can find the same three trig ratios. We're going to find what is sine of 90. Sine of 90 is y over r, right? But what is y? Is r. So r over r, which is equal to 1. What is cos 90? Is x over r, but x is 0. So we got 0 over r, which is 0. And one more, what is tan of 90? Very important, tan of 90 is y over x. And we're getting y over 0. But we can't divide by 0. That's the reason why it is undefined, right? And we know at 90 degrees on the tan graph, there is a vertical asymptote, right? What I mean by the tan graph is this funny looking graph here, and there's a vertical asymptote here, right? And that's how the tan graph looks, right? So that is 90 degrees, or pi by 2. This is pi, right? And you know, tan of 45 is 1, somewhere around there, right? Now you can summarize all this into a table where we have opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. The nice thing about the table is you have to write down the angle in order. The hypotenuse is all 2's, right? Now for the opposite and adjacent, you count from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you take a square root, and you take a square root. So square root of 0 is 0, square root of 1 is 1, square root of 2 is root 2, square root of 3 is root 3, square root of 4 is 2, square root of 0 is 0, then you count back up. Square root of 1 is 1, square root of 2 is root 2, square root of 3 is root 3, square root of 4 is 2. Now how do we use this table? SOHCAHTOA. If I ask you what is sine of 30, sine of 30 is opposite over hypotenuse, is 1 over 2, is half. If I ask you what is cos of 45, is root 2 over 2. The nice thing about this table is that it rationalizes for you. You don't have any square roots in the denominator. Okay, now let's have a look at these types of questions. Right, so now we're going to use SOHCAHTOA to solve all this. What is this? This is 60 degrees. Calculate the value of x. So what information do we have here? We've got the opposite, right? And we got the hypotenuse. So what does opposite hypotenuse make? SOHCAHTOA. Right, so we have the hypotenuse, right? And we want to solve for the opposite. So none of these have opposite and hypotenuse together. So we solve for sine. So we say sine theta, but theta in this part is 60 degrees. So sine 60 is equal to x over 12, right? Now what is sine of 60? Using sine of 60 on the table is opposite of our hypotenuse, root 3 over 2. Sine of 60 is root 3 over 2, which is x over 12. Now you can cross multiply and solve, right? So we're getting 2x. Cross multiplication works for what? For equations. If you have fraction on this side, fraction on this side. So you got 2x is equal to 12 root 3. If you divide both sides by 2, therefore x is equal to 6 square root of 3. I hope you understood that. Next one. If sine theta plus cos theta is equal to 0, then find the value of theta. Now how do we solve this? We have to use basically the sum of two numbers, right, must give me 0. Now it's just using special angles, all right? So the sum of two numbers must give me 0. So remember, I can only get x minus x is equal to 0, right? So the numbers must be the same numbers, right? So the difference between the sum of two numbers must give me 0. In other words, negative x plus x. So one must be of opposite sign. Now looking at this example here, if I try sine of 45, right? Now we have to use a cast diagram as well, right? because if I try sine of 45 is root 2 over 2 and cos of 45 is root 2 over 2. I'm adding two positive numbers. I can't get 0, right? I'll get a larger positive number. So if I go into the second quadrant, I know sine is positive, right? So I know my reference angle is 45 degrees. If I go into the second quadrant, I know sine is positive there, but cos is negative, right? So theta is equal to 135 degrees. Okay, why? How we got 135? 180 minus 45. So now if I try sine of 135 plus cos of 135, I should get 0. Let me show you that. Sine 135, see what I'm getting? Root 2 over 2, and plus cos of 135, see what's my answer? 0. So 135 works, right? And you know cos of 135 is also is negative root 2 over 2. Now if you go to the fourth quadrant, or you can choose an answer in the fourth quadrant, where remember we have theta reference angle is 45, you can just go negative 45. Okay, so cos is positive and sine will be negative, so negative 45 will also work. Theta is equal to negative 45. Or if you choose, if you're saying 360 minus the reference angle, uh, to say negative 45 the coterminal angle of this, or if you're saying 360 minus the reference angle, you should get 315 as well, right? So sine 315 will be negative root 2 over 2, cos 315 will be root 2 over 2, and the sum of opposite numbers is equal to 0. The same but opposite signs. Same number but opposite sign. Let's look at the next example. Sine theta plus cos theta is equal to 0. Now how are you going to get is equal to 1? How are you going to get equal to 1? So I can say 1 plus 0 is 1, or 0 plus 1 is equal to 1. So those are the two cases from special angles, right? So now try sine of 0. Sine of 0 is 0, cos of 0 is 1. So theta equals 0 works. Or try 90 degrees. Sine of 90 is sine of 90 is 1, cos of 90 is 0, so 90 degrees also work, right? And I'm not saying these are the only answers. There are other answers using you know, the cast diagram and trig graphs. So I'm just looking for two possible answers here for understanding purposes. Let's look at this. Find the area of the parallelogram if ABCD. Find the area of the parallelogram ABCD. Right, so how are we going to find the area of this parallelogram here? Remember, area of parallelogram, area is equal to base times height. Now look at this. This is the height. They should have told us this is the height, right? Now if this is the height of the triangle, where's the base? The base is this entire thing here. Now properties of parallelogram, that is that opposite sides are equal. Remember that distance from there to there is already 5. So the reason why I shaded this in and shaded this in is because the entire distance is 12. So if I only want the distance from there to there, 12 minus 5, that's going to give me 7. Okay, so 7 plus 5 is 12. Now remember, you got 5, 13, and you can get this to be 12 using Pythagorean triple. So we know the height is 12, right? What's the base? The base is this entire thing from A to B, 7 plus 5, which is also 12. And 12 times 12 is 144 units squared. Okay, now next one. We know this is the height, right? Now this is also a parallelogram, and this is also a parallelogram. So the distance from there to there is 14. So we know the base is 14. Area is equal to base times perpendicular height. The height must be 90 degree height. So we know the base is 14, right? So we can put down 14 here. Now what is the height? We don't know what the height is. We know the opposite sides are equal in a parallelogram. So what we can say here is that BC is 8, so AD is also 8. So we have 8. But now this is not our height. The height is always 90 degree height. So the 90 degree height is here. So we want to find the height, right? Let's call it X. Not X, let's call it Y value. Okay, no, let's call it height, right? Right, so I'm trying to find the height. Now I have opposite hypotenuse. So I'm going to use sine 30 to find the height. So I'm going to say sine 30 because opposite hypotenuse. Sine 30 degrees is equal to, opposite is h and the hypotenuse is 8. The height, h represents the height. Sine 30 is half, is equal to h over 8. You can see 2 times 4 is 8, 1 times 4 is 4, so h is equal to 4. Or you can cross multiply and solve. 2h is equal to 8, divide both sides by 2, h is equal to 4 in the same case. So what is h? 4. Now 14 times 4 is 28, 56, right? 56 units squared. Area is in square units. I hope you guys understood that.